After doing over 7 million sales across a range of industries from door to door, high ticket, and real estate, this is gonna be 29 minutes of the best sales advice that you need. We're gonna be going over all this. Okay, so let's talk sales discovery. Now, the very first thing we're gonna focus on is gonna be goals, okay? Let me explain this. What we're doing today, we're not gonna be talking about the intro, rapport, frame building. That's another video. We're just gonna be talking about the discovery section, okay? The reason that I'm gonna go goals first is I'm assuming this is gonna be a B2C BizOps style offer, okay? Now, an important caveat, there's really two ways that you can go in a discovery. So you can either talk about their goals first, or you can talk about their pain, i.e. current situation, what's not working, okay? It really depends on the industry and the niche that you're in. In general, for high ticket, if you're doing B2B, you generally want to go pain first, i.e. current situation, okay? For B2C, I've always found it better to go goals first, because when you're talking to a stranger, they're more likely to open up about their goals and where they want to go compared to all their struggles, okay? So we're going to do that. Now, let's dive in. Here's the important point of the goals section, okay? There's really two goals that we're trying to get. Number one is the logical goal, okay? Number two is the emotional goal. Let me explain the difference. So the logical goal may mean, hey, I want to make $30,000 a month, okay? So that's the logical goal. That's going to be the anchor for the conversation, okay? The emotional goal is the why. It's the reason behind it, right? I want to make 30K a month because I've been stuck at 10K a month. And to me, I want to prove it to my father who told me I would never be able to amount to anything. That's the reason, okay? People buy based on emotion justified by logic. If you're not getting the emotional reasons in your discovery, you are missing out on a ton of deals, okay? And the way that you do that is through probing questions, by going deeper. Now, that's a topic for another video, but let's continue on with this, okay? Now, to give you a framework for a type of question that you can ask in the goals section, I always like to start off very broad. So I'll ask a question like, cool, so big picture, what's the ultimate vision here, okay? Those are very choice words, I say. Big picture, okay? And then what is the ultimate vision, okay? Using the word vision, right, and big picture, it's gonna have a different type of energy to that question compared to saying, well, what's the goal, right? If you just say, what's the goal? Someone is more likely to say, well, I wanna make money, right? Or something very vague and not as deep. When you say, hey, big picture, like, what's the ultimate vision here, right? That gets them to tap into more of an emotional way of processing what I'm saying. We're going to think, well, the big vision is I've been trying to get to X, Y, and Z for a certain amount of time, and I really want to hit, $30,000 a month because it would mean a lot to me, right? Now, the power of going broad on your first question is that sometimes they're going to give you a ton of information where you don't need to ask a bunch of other questions afterwards, right? And you might be able to just skip ahead and hit on some of the other stuff that we're about to talk about, okay? So that's why you start broad, okay? Next, you go to the emotional. Okay, so once you get the logical thing, hey, I want to make 30K a month. Okay, so, all right, great. Now, one thing that you can do on that, you should throw in depending on whatever you're selling. Let's say you're selling something with like TikTok Shop or something, right? And they need to have X amount of products to hit, we'll just use 10K a month. Say, oh yeah, typically on average for our clients, they're making about, 1,000 a month per product. So you would just need about 10 products, right? Sort of boom, like quickly throw that in a very nonchalant, subtle way. Okay, you don't want to do it in a way where it sounds like you're selling them. It's just kind of like off the cuff, because what it does, it helps them realize that their goal is actually more attainable than they think it is. Okay, people need to have hope to buy from you. They need to feel like it's possible. And a lot of people, especially in a B2C environment, BizOp, when they have these goals of getting to 10K, 20K, 30K a month, they feel like it's like, wow, this is ethereal. Like they can't do it. It feels too big picture. So by saying just something quick like that, boom, you ground them into it. Okay, cool. So we got that goal. Now we need to go on the emotional side, the why, right? Like, why is that important? Okay, so let's say someone says, yeah, big picture, really want to get to 10K a month and I want to start my own business. Okay, I'd be like, cool. Let me ask you, like, how long has that been the goal for specifically? Right? So I'm going to go into time, right? Because when I go into time, time is an amplifier. Okay, I'm going to write that down over here. This is very important that you understand this. Time equals amplifier. Okay, I don't know if I spelled that right. I'm a sales guy. Okay, so that's all that matters, not the spelling, it's the content. All right, when you add time, whether it's to your goals, whether the pain that they're experiencing, it stretches out, it makes it bigger. Okay, now one of the things you have to understand is that really what you're doing in the sales process is you're taking them through an emotional journey, right? We're going to go very high, right? You're talking about goals, you're getting them excited, getting them feeling good. Then you're going to talk about pain, current situation, why they can't do it, they're going down, right? And then what you're doing is when you go eventually, this is for another video, when you go into the transition, the pitch, you're bringing them back up, they have hope, and then they will buy. okay? But you have to take them through that emotional journey, okay? To create the feelings and the beliefs needed to get them to buy your product or service, all right? Now, we're getting to the emotional side, okay? I don't go off on a tangent. Just bear with me here. I'm gonna give you as much content and value as I can, all right? So ask them, okay, cool. How long has it been the goal for? Oh, it's been the goal for about 3 years. Okay, well, I gotta ask, like, it sounds like you've had that goal for a long time. Like, I know that might sound like a dumb question, but like, why is getting to 10K a month so important to you? Okay, a few things I did there. Number one, I pre-framed my question, right? So when you ask questions that can sometimes seem obvious, but you need to go deeper, the easiest way to get compliance, get the answer you want, is to pre-frame your question. So instead of just saying, well, why is getting 10K a month important to you, right? Some people might be like, well, dude, I just want more money, right? And you don't want to get that type of answer. That means you're breaking your rapport with your prospect. Okay, you're getting out of alignment. So when you pre-frame it, it's like, hey, I know this might sound kind of like obvious, or like this might kind of sound like a dumb question. Okay, what you do is, for a brief second, you assume the inferior position. Okay, in the dynamic, there's a superior and inferior, and then that way they're not going to shit on you and be like, hey, that was a dumb question. Instead, they're going to just explain it more. Simple enough, right? Cool. So they'll explain it. Well, I've just always dreamed of being a business owner. Okay, it's like, got it. Well, tell me more about that, right? Just getting to expand. Well, what do you mean by that? Like, in what way? Tell me more, right? And then they'll start going on and on about why that's important to them. Okay. Now, contrary to a lot of people, what I've found, especially in today's environment, I don't think you need to just go so deep into the goals and build this grandiose thing. All I'm looking for is the anchor point. I'm just looking for what I like to call my anchor point. Okay. So that's the entire thing I can drive the conversation. It's guiding me, right? So I know they want to make 10K a month from TikTok shop. They want to be their own business owner. It's like, cool. If I have that, I'm good. I really like to spend a lot of my time in the current situation, doubt, why they can't do, this on their own, why everything else they've tried has failed. That's where I really find the most juice. Okay. So I've got the goal. All right. Cool. Now, second thing we need to do is we're going to move into current situation. Okay. Now, I also call this quote unquote pain. Okay. But you can call it whatever you like. I'm just going back to, we were talking about the future. I want to know where they are right now. Okay. So easiest way to do that, listen, there's multiple ways that you can run this. I'm just going to show you a very simple way of doing this. You can be like, okay, cool. Well, what are you doing for work right now? Right. And then they're going to tell you. Okay. So work question, easy. Like, what are you doing for work right now? Okay. Easy. They'll start talking about it. Okay. Cool. How long have you been doing that for? Right. That's the next question. Oh, I've been doing it for a few years. Awesome. Well, I mean, do you like it? I might be like, yeah, it's good. It kind of pays the bills, right? This is an opportunity for you to probe in. And they might say something like, okay, well, I got to ask, I mean, after doing this for 3 years, everything sounds like it's going fairly well for you. What all of a sudden has kind of shifted, making you feel like you really want to actually get this business going like right now though? Cool. So what you're going to do with the current situation, okay, is when you're asking them like, hey, what are you doing for work? Right? Super simple question. Hey, what are you doing for work? We're talking about right now. All right. The next thing is I'm going to ask time. How long have you been doing that for? Okay. Yeah, well, I'm doing it about 3 years. Okay. Then you're going to follow up with, do you like it? Right? Cool. Yeah, I like it. No, I don't. Right. What I'm trying to do here, see, a lot of people, they do is they'll really like jam the knife in on like the pain of the 9 to 5. And sometimes you need to do that. But really more importantly, what I'm trying to do is it's one bridge to get them to where they want to go. Okay. And I need to eliminate that. So I'll show you how to do that in a second. But what we're doing here is I'll say, what do you do for work right now? Okay. How long have you been doing that for? Do you like it? Right? And through that, I'll be able to gain some stuff, because you're going to find some people that are actually happily employed. They actually like their job. And so for you to try and drive the knife home on their 9 to 5, it's actually going to turn them off. Okay. So you have to know what position they're in. But if you find someone who actually really doesn't like it, they're in a lot of pain, you can go deeper into that. Okay. Now, once we've done that, one way we could start to eliminate all the different options that they have is we could say, okay, cool. So I guess like with what you're currently doing right now, I know you told me that you wanted to get to 10K a month. I mean, how like far are you from that goal? You can like do a visual cue like this, right? And they might say, oh, well, I'm making about 4K a month, right? Boom. What I just did there is I actually financially qualified them to get an idea of how much they're making. Okay. So another plus here is that you can financially qualify. Okay. And that's a very subtle way of doing it. All right. Now, from there, what I'm going to do, once I figure that out, is I'm going to ask them, like I said, okay, what is holding you back from getting there? And then usually it's very obvious, right? Like, oh, I'm capped, my salary's capped, et cetera, right? So that starts to eliminate all the different vehicles. So let me give you a visual example of what I mean by eliminating their different options, okay? So when you're talking about where they're at, okay, as a stick figure, this is where they want to go, right? That's the endpoint, okay? And they have all these different ways They have all these different ways of getting there. Okay, in B2C biz op environment, one of those ways is usually just their 9 to 5. Okay, and then it might be, option 2, option 3. These are the different things that they've tried. Okay, I need to eliminate all of these so that they take my option, which is my product. Okay, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to eliminate everything so they take my option. So that's why I spent the time there asking about what they do. I don't really care so much about the job. I just care why is it not getting into where they want to go? That's the key you need to understand. Okay. Now, once we've done that, we're going to number 3. Okay, which is solution. Okay, so all solution means, put simply, is what have they tried, right? I want to know, what have they tried? What are the different things that they've done to try and get to where they want to go? Okay, so I'll just ask a question like, cool. So you're talking about wanting to get to 10K a month. You've been wanting to get there for a few years. Over the last few years, what all have you tried as different avenues to hit 10K a month? Okay, this is important because number 1, it shows me where they're at. Okay, number 2, I can actually start to weed out possibly some fear and uncertainty. I might need to work on the discovery. If they're like, oh, I've just been thinking about it for years and I haven't done anything, that's a sign, and that will come up in the end if you don't handle that discovery. Okay, they'll be scared to move forward. All right. But really, I'm trying to figure out what are the other options. So let's just keep it simple for this. Let's just say option number 2 would be like, we'll put drop shipping, and then option number 3 would be like FBA, like Amazon FBA. Okay. So I'm just going to ask them, cool. Yeah. So with the drop shipping, what happened there? Right. And then they'll usually start talking about it. Why did it work, et cetera. Okay. And then I'll also ask, okay, cool. Well, I know you said you trade some Amazon FBA as well. What happened with all that? And then they'll talk about it more, see why it doesn't work, et cetera. Right. And ideally what I'm trying to get them to describe is why that didn't get them to where they want to go. Okay. Now, very important. Once I've done that, okay, the solution. So I eliminate other options. I need to get them to self-sell, okay, to get them to sell themselves on this opportunity, okay? Self-sell, okay? So what I'm gonna do to get them to self-sell is I'm gonna say, cool. So, you're looking into doing this TikTok shop stuff. It sounds like you've been looking into it for a little bit now, right? Why do you feel like this might potentially be a bit better of a business model to actually get you to 10K a month compared to, say, drop shipping or Amazon FBA? Okay, because now what they have to do is they have to sell themselves on why TikTok shop is gonna be better. Okay, you should not be selling them. You should never be like, oh, well, it's better because of this, this, and this. You don't want to do that. Okay, it's very salesy. In today's environment, you can't do that. Okay, they need to sell themselves. All right, cool. So that's the solution, right? What do they try? Okay, now I'm gonna move into doubt. Okay, so all doubt is basically, why can't they do it on their own? So I'm trying to eliminate, I'm going to say X out, the DIY objection. Okay, do it on your own. Okay, in addition, I'm also trying to build the value of our product or service, because if they're starting to explain to me why they can't do it on their own, well, then obviously they're going to need someone's help, i.e. us. And I can use that information in my pitch, because if they tell me specific things that they need, I can use my pitch. Smart, right? Cool. All right. So with a doubt-based question, I would say something like, cool. Well, I guess I'm kind of curious. I mean, you seem smart, or you're hardworking, whatever it is. I'll usually give them a compliment to basically stroke their ego, okay? And listen, this is very key, it's a little high level. The ego wants to be right, okay? So as an example, let's say I have a business owner on the phone, right? I'll be like, well, you're an entrepreneur. I guess I'm kind of curious, why not just try and figure this out on your own, right? The ego wants to be right, so they're going to justify why they can't figure it out on their own because I gave that compliment in the beginning and I stroked their ego. Okay, very subtle, but very great. Okay, so then they're gonna explain to me why they feel like they can't do it on their own. They're gonna be like, oh, well, I don't even know where to start. Okay, and if they give me something vague, that's when I'm gonna hone in and try and get more specifics. I'm saying, okay, cool. Well, where specifically do you feel like you would need the most help in terms of getting this business started? Okay. And then they're going to start going deeper onto why they can't do this on their own. They might say, well, I don't know how to find products. Or they might say, I'm really not good with tech. Or I don't understand exactly how the TikTok algorithm works. Whatever it might be. Okay, very important. So once we've got that, we've got doubt. Okay, then what I like to do is I move into, and this is really the most important part. Okay, so pay attention to this. Number 5, okay, cost of inaction. Okay, So up until this point, you have to understand what we've done. Up until this point, okay, we know their goal. We've got the anchor of the conversation, 10K a month, TikTok shop, okay? We know what their current situation is, right? We know that they're in a job that's not cutting it for them. It's not allowing them to get to where they want to go, right? We also know what they've tried. They tried drop shipping and Amazon FBA, right? They've explained to me why the 9 to 5 won't work, because I already asked them the question, like why you can't get there. They've explained why drop shipping won't work. They've explained why Amazon FBA won't work. Okay, we already got that. And they've also explained to me why they think, you know, we'll just say TT for TikTok shop, why they think TikTok shop would be better. Okay, they sold themselves in that, right? So we've done that, okay? We've also created doubt, why they can't do this on their own. So we know that they can't do it on their own. But now we need to go to the cost of inaction. The cost of inaction is basically like, what happens if they don't do this, if they don't make a change, if they don't find the right thing, right? Obviously, we ask questions in a much better way, but we need to get them to the point where they're ready to make a change, okay? Now, the depth at which you go in this question is very dependent on what that conversation is like with the prospect. If there's someone who has been thinking about it for years, they haven't gotten started, that's again, usually a sign that they're in a state of fear and they're afraid to move forward, and that will 100% hold them back in the closing. And so you need to try and handle that now and really build the character traits and do some identity work to get them to step into the version of themselves that they need to be able to do this, okay? For some people, you don't need to go that deep. It really just depends, all right? So here's a simple way of asking the cost of an action question, right? So what I like to do is I will take the information they gave me in doubt for where they feel like they need the most help. Okay, and I'll say, hey, if you had found this, say, a year ago, right? I'll use a time frame. Ideally, I usually take however long they've been looking at it. If it's been like a week, don't say it. But I'll take however long they've been thinking about starting a business, whatever it is. Hey, if you had found this a year ago and you had the help with all the things that you just told me, right? Like let's say A, they said they needed help with, you know, market research. B, they needed help with TikTok, algo, and C, product, okay? If you have found this, say, a year ago, and you had all the help on how to do the market research correctly and how to understand the TikTok shop algorithm, right? And also how to find the products, and you had someone who was actually walking you through that process and guiding you, where do you think you'd be by now? Powerful question, right? Because now they're starting to realize, oh my gosh, if I started this a year ago, I could have been way further ahead. And this is very important. We're looking for high quality answers here where they realize, like, crap, I gotta make a change. Meaning, if they say, well, I don't know, I don't really get it. That means like you didn't do a good enough job on the rest of the discovery and you're gonna have to go in deep here. What I wanna hear is them saying like, yeah, I think like, oh man, by now, like I think I'd be, crushing on TikTok. But I wanna get specifics. I wanna know how much money they've missed out on. Okay. So what I'm going to do to be able to do that is to say, okay, yeah, 100%. But like, when you say you think you'd be crushing it, I mean, realistically, like if you had all that help and you just started a year ago, how much money do you think you could have made by now? Boom. Right. Then they'll say something like, well, I think I could have made like 100K, 100K. So you tell me you would hit that 10K month goal that you've had for the past 3 years. Like, yeah. Okay. And let's say hypothetically, they told me they want to leave their job and that they needed 10K month to leave. Okay. What would that mean for you being able to walk away from your job? Would you have done it already? Like, yeah, I probably would have. Like, okay. Huh? So I guess how much longer do you want to wait? You can feel the death. You can feel the silence, right? And they usually say something like, I don't want to wait any longer. Like, I'm ready to do this. And again, this is very dependent on the prospect. For some people, if I feel like, again, they're in a lot of fear, I will go deeper here into the identity shift, and I'll show you how I do that. For other people, it could be enough. And I might say, okay, cool. Well, why do you feel like now you're finally ready? Like, why aren't you willing to wait any longer? And then they'll justify to me why they need to do it now, right? I've been putting this off for years, et cetera. I feel like now is the right time. Well, what do you mean by that? Like, why do you feel like now is the right time compared to before? Well, everything's aligned, et cetera. Right? Okay, cool. Now, again, you can go even deeper on that, right? Again, if they're in a lot of fear, I might say something like, well, I gotta be totally honest with you. I mean, you've spent years looking into this. And it sounds like based on what you told me, you have just been afraid to make a mistake, afraid to start. So why do you feel like now is going to be so different? Okay, so let's go a little bit deeper into some of that identity work. Okay, so let's say there's someone who is like baked in fear, right? And just as a side note, one thing that you want to do when you're in the current situation, after you've done goals, it's great to ask a question, especially if they've told you they've been thinking about it for years. Like, well, can I ask you an honest question? Like, what do you feel like has really held you back from being able to just get to insert their goal, just get to 10K a month? Right? And when you ask like that, sometimes you'll get that real deep, honest answer. Like, honestly, I'm afraid to fail. Right? And you boom, tackle right there. Anyways, so in the cost of an action, doing the identity work. All right. like you've been looking at this for 3 years, like what do you feel like is so different this time around? Like why do you feel like this time you're gonna actually go make work, right? Well, because I need to. I just feel like the time is right. When you say the time is right, like what do you mean by that? I'm tired of waiting. Yeah. Okay. Why is that? Because I've been doing this for 3 years, right? Hmm. Well, I guess let me ask you this: like, are you willing to accept spend the next 3 years like the last 3 years, like hoping, wishing, waiting for a different outcome, but not actually taking action? Or are you ready to finally step into that version of yourself that you need to be? Like, I'm ready to do that. Okay. Well, talk about that version of yourself. When you think about the version of you a year from now, that's where you got in TikTok shop up and running. That's making 10K a month. That was able to walk away from their job. That's the business owner that they're meant to be. What do you think that version of you did to get to where they are compared to what you're doing right now? Compared to what you've always done? Like, well, they took the step. Yeah. Okay. So I guess then, like, who do you need to be to actually walk into that version of yourself that exists out there? Well, I need to take a step. Okay. And do you feel like you're finally ready to do that after all this time? Yeah. Boom. Okay. There's a lot of different ways to do that. That's just off the cuff. But basically what we're doing when we do identity work, okay, we're tying someone. There is, and I believe this truly, like in everyone, they have the potential to be who they want to be, right? Doesn't mean everyone realizes that potential like it actually happens, but I believe everyone has that potential. Okay. And so we want to tie that where they're currently at to that future version, because most people innately know what they need to do. And when you think about like, hey, that future version of yourself, it's a powerful frame. We are empowering our clients, our prospects that we're talking to step into that. That is what sales is all about. It's about being a leader for them. Okay. They need to know that deep inside of them, there is the person they want to be, but they have to unlock that. Okay. They have to step into that version of themselves. And it's our job to lead them there. Okay. That is what we are doing. All right. It's very important. And so by having them visualize a future version of themselves that they already know the steps they need to take, all they have to do now is just to stay in alignment. Tony Robbins said, identity is the highest driver of behavior, okay? People don't like to step out of line with their identity. And so if they start talking about the future version of themselves, it would be essentially breaking rapport with themselves if they would step out of alignment with what they know they need to do. They'd be like, you have to do what your identity is telling you to do, right? You can't ignore that. It would be like the ultimate sacrifice of your own ego to do that, right? So like, that's why when you talk about identity, people are so attached to it and they will follow whatever that identity is, okay? And what the behaviors of that person does, okay? We're talking about making behavioral changes. Does that make sense? All right, cool. So we have the call to action, all right? Now, I don't, and some people do, it really depends on your sales process and how qualified people are in terms of, money. I already showed you earlier that we financially qualified when I asked like how much they're making, okay? But if your sales process, like if you don't have an applications like that, then you definitely want to dive a bit deeper into their qualifications, right? You can do that a little bit later if you want. I don't like doing it so soon because it can cause a lot of sales resistance. So you should just get that in your application or setter, okay? But so we'll not talk about money. I'm just gonna say, X money. Don't worry about that. Okay, we're gonna handle that. All right. Next, what I like to dive into, okay, is gonna be trust. Okay, trust. Okay. And what you're about to see with 6 and 7, you can actually interchange them. I'll show you that in a second. So trust is basically like, do they trust us? Like I want them to sell themselves on us a little bit, right? Like I already got them to sell themselves on my product, right? I want them to be sold on us. So question I like to ask is, hey, I'm kind of curious. There's obviously a lot of people out there. I guess like, what was it about us in particular? Or like if you're selling for someone else, what was it about the person, the guru in particular that kind of stood out to you compared to maybe some of the other people you've seen out there, right? And also like take note of my tonality. It's very soft. It's very like maybe, you know what I mean? Like I'm not saying like, well, what's better about us compared to them? Like that's weird, right? Too much, okay? Very soft. And so ideally, if you have good marketing, right? You have good setters and good pre-call material, they should say something like, yeah, I don't know, just something about, Jeff, the owner, like it really stood out to me. He seems so genuine, right? Or it seems like you guys have a really built out plan that would really help me out, okay? So again, I'm looking for them to tell me a little bit more. Now, if you hear someone say something like, well, I don't know, I'm still trying to figure that out, right? I'm not 100% sure, right? That can be a sign sometimes that might be a little too early on the sales process up there, a bad lead, right? But either you're gonna need to dig in right there on the sales call, or sometimes just depending on the lead, it can be helpful to actually break this up into a 2-call close. I'm all for doing 1-call closes, but if you're hearing someone say stuff like, yeah, I don't know, I'm really just doing my research, still trying to learn more about y'all, kind of see what this is all about, etc. See if this is legit, blah, blah, blah. it would be best to probably break that up into 2 calls, and then in between the second call, send them more material, testimonials, case studies, questions that they need answers on, and then just hop back on another call, okay? So, set it, all right? Now, after we've done trust, okay, we got them to explain why they trust us and think we're better. And again, like what we're doing is when they compare us, okay, they're literally selling themselves on us. Now, one thing that I haven't talked about here is competitors, because it really depends. Some offers, there's a lot out there where people are shopping for competitors. It just depends on where they're at in the buyer's journey. Like if they're already a very aware buyer, they may have talked to other competitors. And usually you'll hear that somewhere in the solution stage when you're talking about like, cool, well, what have you tried? Or in the doubt, like, why can't you get this started on your own? Like, oh, well, I've looked into some people, and that's where you can handle competitors. Okay. But I don't have like a standalone section for that. It just depends on what I'm getting in the discovery. All right. Now, last thing. So number 7 is support. Support. Okay. So that just means I'm looking at, are there any other decision makers? Okay. A partner, a spouse, etc. Right? Now, the way that I like to do that is if I'm talking to somebody like, cool, like you have any like partners or like a spouse you're gonna be doing this with, or anything like that, right? And just see what they say. Now, this is very important, okay? You need to find out if they have a spouse. So if like, no, I'm just me, but oh, cool, okay, you don't have a spouse or anything? Or like, but if they say, oh no, yeah, I have a spouse, etc., you need to go deeper into that, because what can happen a lot of times, just because someone says they're not going to be doing this with someone else, that doesn't mean that they're not going to need to go talk to that other person and get confirmation, buy-in, whatever it is. And so what I'm really trying to do is trying to pre-handle, I need to talk to my wife. I need to talk to XYZ person, right? And I'll show you how I do that. This is probably the best way that I found to do that. So let's say they say, yeah, I'm just going to do it on my own. However, I have a wife, etc. Oh, cool. Yeah. So what does she think about all this stuff? Oh yeah, she's supportive. Okay, cool. Well, I gotta ask, I mean, have you like told her that you're thinking about this? Be like, yeah, okay. And I know earlier you said that one of your big goals, and again, this is why it's so important to get information. Let's just say he said, I want to get 10K a month so I could spend more time with my wife. Let's say that was what happened in the goal section, all right? I know you said earlier in the conversation, like you're really doing this because you want to get more time to spend with your wife, right? And you've been wanting to do that, you said, for the past 3 years, correct? Yeah. I mean, how does your wife feel about you not always being around so much because like you're having work? Like, yeah, it kind of bothers her, you know? It's like, like in what way? Well, she wants me there. She wants me to be more present. Okay. How do you think your wife would feel if after 3 years of talking about this, wanting to do it, if just a few short months from now, you were able to finally be present for her, like the husband that you're supposed to be? Like, I think she would feel so happy. And how do you think she would look at you? What would change? I think she'd be so proud of me. Boom. Cool. Because now what I've done is I've just anchored that the reason for him moving forward is for the spouse. Okay, so it's much less likely that at the end of the call, I gotta go talk to her, right? Because he's doing this for her, right? And then even if that does come up at the end of the call, you can bring it back. Hey, earlier in the conversation, you told me that you're looking to do this so that you can be the type of husband you want to be, so you can spend more time with her. And that's what she wants you to do, right? And then obviously depending on their dynamic, sometimes that might mean you just go for a deposit. If it's out of, like respect, like, hey, listen, I totally get it, but I just want to talk to her. Go for deposit. That's fine. You can still close this. Okay. But you need to have that ammunition to bring it back. Okay. So in short, that is the process that I go through. Okay. In this order. Now, I want to be very clear that the types of questions that I said, there's a lot of ways that you can mix and match these. There's other things that can come up in the discovery, but having this overall flow of going goals, current situation, solution, doubt, cost of an action, trust, support, it's the best way that I found to flow through a BizOp B2C style call. Okay. And again, if you're selling something B2B, okay, in general, you would usually swap these two. Okay. It all depends on the offer. Like I said in the beginning, I've just found it easier to go into goals. So that's the discovery in a nutshell. Hope that helps you out. See you in the next one.